let's discuss the WWE's Ava Raine, who is the daughter of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. All right. And she had a comment on the passing of Charlie Kirk. It started with this. Comedian Gianmarco Cerezi, free plug, had him on my podcast, The Rick Strom Show. If you want people to have kind words when you pass, you should say kind words when you are alive. Seems simplistic. She would post that message on her official Instagram page. And then she quote tweeted it saying, "And I'll stand behind this. Be kind. Now more than ever." The reaction that has occurred because of her post is patently absurd. I think it's a fairly simple message to live by. And it also shows how divisive these times are. That something like that can be criticized and misconstrued. So here was the reaction. Be kind or get assassinated. I'm sure you've said something unkind. I know your dad has. What an idiotic statement. She is not saying that in the slightest. Someone added the WWE and TKO. Does TKO and WWE stand behind this? Another one. If you're, wrong way of spelling it, behind ain't unemployed by the end of the day, this shifts to WWE itself. If TKO wants to stand behind some Nepo baby and lose customers, that's their issue. Let me tell you something. This guy ain't leaving. He ain't. They have connections to and are an extension of this administration and MAGA politics as a whole. They were there along with Harrison Butker and many others. Bryson DeChambeau is the one I'm thinking of. And many others when Donald Trump announced his presidential fitness test, which was ridiculous. Because Triple H, who I believe has seen his body decline because of steroids, is apparently some guy that we should be listening to about being emblematic of good health. Please. They just announced that WrestleMania is going to be in Saudi. Fans are peeved. That I understand. Saying that someone should be gone and fired because she quote tweeted saying, if you want people to have kind words when you pass, you should say kind words when you're alive, is insane. Especially when it comes from the party of free speech absolutists. Because that's what we're seeing over and over again. Now, let me be clear, all of that aside. And I have said this in multiple TikToks and multiple videos, no matter the platform. No one should be unalived because they have a political belief. Political violence is getting worse. And I blame it on a few different things. One being an administration and politicians who weaponize this sort of political rhetoric, which will only embolden more people. What you have is infighting on the right, and they are trying to distract everyone by blaming the left. We have gone over in the past week how it is a complete imbalance when it comes to the data, and how, according to Congress, 75% in the acts of political violence come from the right. I don't want to hear this. I don't. But does that mean that someone should be killed? No, of course not. I feel terrible for his family, and I feel terrible for his kids because they didn't sign up for this. And now they don't have a dad. It's awful. It's heartbreaking. It's despicable. But one thing that I will stand by is the counter that I will run to what I have seen from mainstream outlets. Because it is flat out sickening to see the whitewashing of someone whose words were very dangerous. and set a bad precedent for all of us. That a lot of college kids, boys and girls, men and women, now believe in and strive to continue to be and live through. What were some of the things that he said? Should we go over them? Kamala Harris would be a lot easier to beat than Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a bumbling, dementia-filled, Alzheimer's corrupt tyrant who should honestly be put in prison and or given the death penalty for his crimes against America. Death penalty should be public, should be quick, should be televised. I think at a certain age, it's an initiation. What age should you start to see public executions? There's not much you can do, folks. You have a government that hates you. You have a traitor as the president. Buy weapons. I keep on saying that. Buy weapons, buy ammo. If you go into a public place, bring a gun with you. At what point is it time to start to at least use rubber bullets or use some sort of tear gas to prevent this and quell this invasion, he said, of immigrants on the southern border? Why do we have a military? Why do we have men with guns if we can't use them? Having a country means being able to draw a line on the ground and say, this is our sovereign territory. If you enter, we have lethal force and we're willing to use it. It's important to know that Haiti is legitimately infested with demonic voodoo. There are claims that people have seen like quasi-levitation stuff. They collaborated with libs of TikTok, Chaya Raychik, who has been criticized for inciting anti-trans violence. Un-Muslim people, America's freedom of religion, of course, but we should be frank. Large, dedicated Islamic areas are a threat to America. Did the Founding Fathers have in mind Mohammedans coming to the great state of Texas or one of our states to build an exclusive city for Muslims? We've been warning about the rise of Islam on the show. To a great amount of backlash. We don't care. Islam is not compatible with Western civilization. Islam is the sword the left is using to slit the throat of America. He touted the white supremacist Great Replacement theory, incorrectly stating 7.2 million illegals enter the U.S. under the Biden admin. He called the theory reality. PolitiFact labeled it false on their meter. This theory, by the way, directly targets immigrants and Jewish people. But tell me how pro-Jewish he is. He created a professor watch list to, per their words, expose and document college professors who discriminate against conservative students and advance leftist propaganda in the classroom. Professors were threatened, doxxed, and some even had to move away from their homes. He pushed the election lie, and he tweeted, would then delete, that he sent buses full of some of those rioters to January 6th. Again, he tweeted and deleted that. He would say, and her daughter, all of a sudden came home and said, I'm a boy. She said, what? And the whole assembly line, the conveyor belt was starting to grind. They wanted to give her cross-sex hormones. They wanted to give her testosterone therapy. They wanted to cut off her breasts. They wanted to do all these sorts of things. And these doctors could do this without any thought whatsoever. Yeah, sure. Here's the script. Here's the clinic. Go here. Go for surgery. These doctors need to be put in prison quickly. We need to have a Nuremberg-style trial for every gender-affirming clinic doctor. We need it immediately. Even a fellow Trump supporter and a radio host, Daryl Scott, said that Kirk is attempting to inspire a new generation of the Big H youth. The Southern Poverty Law Center said, Turning Point USA's effort to sow fear and division to enforce social hierarchies rooted in supremacism is emblematic of the hard right's broader political project to destroy our foundational democratic principles and institutions. He called Martin Luther King Jr. awful, said black women do not have the brain processing power to hold jobs and are even taking jobs from white people. He had the line about the black pilot saying, oh, I hope he's qualified. He said George Floyd was a scumbag and he died from a drug overdose. That is not true. He blamed a black fire chief in Austin, Texas for flooding deaths that occurred some 3 hours away from the city. He would praise Kyle Rittenhouse, calling him, saying that he's a hero. So I guess my question to everybody that is really upset at us reading his words back to you and feeling some type of way, why do you feel that way? Why are you getting mad at people like Ava Raine? Like I mean this sincerely. You're telling on yourselves and you don't even know it.